Aloha! In this video, I want to talk about the environmental conditions in Hawaii. Hawaii is America's only tropical state. There's a few other places in the mainland that come close, San Diego, Florida Keys, but Hawaii is the only place where we actually have truly tropical conditions going on. With the way the world is heading these days, it may be one of the world's best tropical destinations, just because this is a tropical place. That brings about, I found, a lot of misconceptions with people who've actually never been here, or if they have been here, only visited maybe Honolulu on Oahu or some other place. The Big Island is one unique environmental place. It's just, there's almost nothing else like it on the face of the planet. That's what makes it so cool. There are a lot of different statistics that I've read about this, and one guy argues with another and so on, and so I'm not going to attempt to say that I have this exactly right. If you're the sort of person out there who has more accurate information on the subject, please go ahead, pass it along. You won't hurt my feelings. But anyhow, the usual term I hear is that if the Earth has 11 major climatic zones, from pole to equator and pole again, from fully tropical to fully frozen and glacier, then the Big Island of Hawaii has 9 of those zones. And it's really a matter of splitting hairs. How far do you divide the climates up and so on? But without a doubt, this island has, at the shoreline, climates that are fully tropical, support coconuts, hibiscus, and bananas and all that sort of papaya stuff. And then if you start to climb up our mountains, the mountains go up to over 13,780 some feet. It's an almost 14,000 foot mountains here on this island. As you approach the top of them, it's almost permanent winter up there. I mean, it never gets warm. Some people say that there is permafrost on the top of Mauna Kea. I've heard people who should know say no, there is no permafrost. Whatever. It's again, hair-splitting argument, because any spring water up on that mountain runs at 33 degrees. I mean, it's cold. And I live down here where we grow coconuts, but I can look up for 6 to 8 months out of the year, and on top of Mauna Kea from here I can see snow. We had snow down that mountain to, I believe, almost down to about 11,000 feet recently. It was a big white cap up there. And so that's, 6 to 8 months out of the year we get snow in Hawaii. Did you know that? A lot of people don't know that we get snow every year. You might not get snow in Chicago every year, but we get snow on the Big Island every year, at least to some extent. Pretty incredible, huh? With snow up on top and tropics down below, that means there are layers and layers and layers of weather everywhere in between. So somewhere up the mountain there's places where apple trees and pear trees and cherries grow, and so on and so forth. So it's one of the most diversified environmental locations on the face of the planet. If you measure the Big Island from the seafloor, it is the largest mountain on the face of the earth. It's one good size mountain, even if you measure it from sea level. But because of the fact that it rises so abruptly from the bottom of the ocean, I think 36,000 feet, 33,000 feet, something on this order, down to the bottom, and it rises so abruptly that we actually, despite being in tropical latitudes, we have considerable cold water upwelling offshore over here. And so we get lots and lots and lots of game fish that are associated with that, so it's a great place if you love fish. It's also a really good place if you don't like hurricanes, because even though we're in a tropical location and the islands have been hit by hurricanes in the past to the further west, here on the Big Island we have actually never had a recorded landfall from a hurricane. They've come close, and I think they're coming closer. But they have never hit the land here because they're always downgraded tropical storm. The water's too cold. Hurricanes got to have warm water to be able to fuel itself. And offshore here, those things start pulling like that against the ocean, and that cold water comes up from the bottom of the sea. Hurricanes start to shiver, they turn, and they head out towards Oahu, or they head out towards Kauai. Kauai being one of the older of the well-inhabited islands, it's very, very eroded. It has very shallow seas all around it, and because of that, they're very susceptible to the hurricanes. We're biggest seamount on the face of the planet. We are one of the only tropical locations that actually has snow and coconuts all in the same place in the same month. A lot of people who have only seen pictures on postcards or calendars or on TV or some such thing like that, usually familiar with like the hotel strip on Oahu and Waikiki Beach and all that sort of stuff. And that is definitely a major portion of Hawaii, but it actually doesn't look anything at all like most of the Big Island. Most of the Big Island is to the eastern side, upland cloud forests. It's lowland jungle forests near the shore, and then upland cloud forests as you rise up above 2,000 feet or so. Those cloud forests extend all the way up to a little over 6,000 feet. They gradually begin thinning out until you will eventually go above timberline around 11,000 feet or so, and there are no trees above that. Above the timberline here, no matter what side of the island you're on, it looks like Mars, and that is actually where they've done a lot of research with Mars rovers, lunar rovers, attempting to live on Mars and this sort of thing, because the environment is not that different up there. It's barren. But you come down below that, and all along the eastern side of the Big Island, we have what's known as the windward side. We're at 20 degrees north latitude, and that's approximately the same as Mazatlan, Mexico. And at this latitude, the prevailing airflow is from east to west. Now, most of you who live in Europe and live in the mainland United States, at that latitude, say 30 to 40 degrees, your airflow is reverse. It comes from the west and it goes to the east. Okay, but here we have the trade wind flow. It used to be a very, very, very reliable weather pattern. It was how people navigated with sailing ships years ago. That's why it's called trade wind. You sail one direction across the globe on one set of winds, you loop down to a different latitude, and you get blown back the other way. So you can come from Mexico, for instance, to Hawaii being blown by wind most of the time. If you go just north of Kauai, turn around, it'll blow you back to San Francisco. It's kind of the way things work. That's the way it used to be here. Living in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, we're out here in the middle of the weather-making machines, and we're kind of got our thumbs right on top of what's happening. The Pacific Ocean is getting warmer, and NASA's projections to what would happen when that occurs have been very accurate. They've done some excellent work, and I don't care what anybody in Congress who's got oil companies and coal companies in their pockets has to say about it, okay? That's a load of BS. The ocean's warming up, and as the ocean warms up, NASA had projected over 20 years ago the trade winds would begin to break down. That is beginning to happen. Within the last 10 years or so, we've seen noticeable declines in the amount of air flowing from the east to the west at this latitude. Well, what that means is that the windward side of the Big Island used to be a really wet place. It's not so wet anymore. It's drying out considerably. It used to be we had rain over here in this environment almost every day. It's very common that there be some kind of a shower. We hardly go 2 days without some kind of rain. Now we will go 3, sometimes 4 weeks between rainfall, and that's become the norm. That's really established about 4 years ago, and it hasn't shifted. And it really has to do with the fact that the ocean has gotten a lot warmer. Deny, go right ahead. But it is changing, and Hawaii's climate is also changing with it. Now, what this means, I guess, if you're interested in living here, is that most tourists are always drawn to the leeward sides. The western sides of the islands, no matter which one you're on, have always been drier, warmer, and sunnier than the eastern sides are, because the rain was moving from this side on the Big Island with two mountains almost 14 thou high. As those clouds hit the mountains, they became exhausted. They would just dry themselves out on the eastern side, so when they hit the west was just dry, sunny, warm, very much desert. Western Kahala, which is at the top of this island on the leeward side, Western Kahala typically only receives 3 to 6 inches of rain a year, and that's Phoenix is better than that in Arizona. And so it's a dry place. Cactus thrives over there, dry, crunchy grass, and so on. The eastern sides, well, we receive most areas around 100 inches a year. Hilo, I think, is 120. Mountain View is supposed to be around 150 inches a year. So we have places up the Hamakua coast here at the heads of the waterfalls, like on top Kahala volcano and such, where we're picking up 300-400 inches of rain a year. Some of the wettest places on Earth actually exist in the Hawaiian Islands, along with some of the driest places on Earth. So we got some really cold places, we got some real tropical places, we got the driest places, we got some of the wettest places. The Hamakua coast here north of Hilo, well, they got waterfalls that fall 1,000 to 2,000 feet. Spectacular, spectacular canyons full of green, lush stuff, waterfalls that almost evaporate before they hit the ground, you know. And the tourists have traditionally been drawn to the western side, especially ever since things switched from the steam ships to airplanes, and Hilo lost its place when they stopped bringing in steamships as far as the port of entry. It used to be the Honolulu of the islands a long time ago. It isn't anymore. We still get some tourism over here, but by and large, the windward side of the Big Island is a place where people live. Not so much that a place where people come for vacations. The vacation people, they like to sit around, get sunburned, smear on sunscreen, overheat themselves, you know, and go home. With stories of the endless sunshine. On the other hand, if you actually want to live here, well, we don't have water across all the islands as far as pipes, you know, like you used to on the mainland. And making wells is extremely difficult because of the lava. Water just keeps raining through it. And so a lot of people who are off the plumbing here, who don't hit the county water mains, a lot of those people have to catch water from the sky. If you're planning to live here, then living in the east, where you might be able to get enough water from the sky, is a great plan. Living in the west, they have the same sort of problems. They don't have water distribution over the whole island either, but they don't get the kind of rainfall we do, and so catching from the sky gets to be rather difficult and unpredictable over there. Well, I came to the east side to live, and so I wasn't interested in vacation-like laying on the beach type conditions. I wanted deep soil. We got it over here in parts of the east. I wanted abundant rainfall so I didn't have to water crops. Generally we're getting that, but we're not getting it like we used to. It's still better than most places I've ever been as far as being able to grow a crop without adding irrigation. And this is a real factor as far as I'm concerned, because anytime you're having to irrigate a crop, you're relying on water distribution networks to be able to do it, and it does become an unsustainable practice if the weather dries out. Just experienced horrible droughts in California where they were turning off all the water on everybody. Now the water's back now, and it's washing the mountainsides down. We're getting a similar phenomenon here, that the rain that we used to get a little bit of every day instead is coming, you know, in a big dose every 2 weeks. I really don't think the actual amount of water we get here has changed that much, but how it comes has really changed. The delivery is different. Other issues to consider environmentally: these are volcanic islands entirely, and the Hawaiian chain is actually huge. It's thousands of miles long. It includes islands like Midway of World War II history and so on that extend well out beyond Kauai. We now have, I believe, the world's largest marine preserve in the western Hawaiian Islands, mostly around islands that the majority of you have never heard of. Okay, but they extend way heading out towards Asia over there, out in the northwest. The islands themselves have been forming out here for millions and millions of years in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. They were never part of continental drift. They were never part of Pangaea or Gondwanaland. They have never come in contact with any other place on Earth. We've always been isolated right out here. We happen because of a thin spot in the Pacific plate that sits directly below where these islands form. As the plate moves slowly to the northwest, it drags the islands along with it as they're forming, and new ones keep forming slowly in the southeast. Currently we have Loihi. I think Loihi's 18,000 feet under the ocean or something at the moment. Anyway, got a new island coming up offshore here. I wouldn't be investing yet. Don't invest in Loihi. It'll be a while. But the islands gradually move to the northwest. They gradually erode. Maui, for instance, used to be part of Molokai and part of Lanai. These were all one island, like the Big Island. They kind of eroded and fell apart. And so now you got 3 islands close together over there. Big Island may do the same thing one of these days. But anyway, it's a volcanic chain, and it's an unusual volcanic chain because we do not have the tectonic plate subduction that causes ring of fire volcanoes around the Pacific coasts. All this Krakatoa, and Mount St. Helens and all that. This is what most people think of when they're thinking of volcanoes, because those are the most common volcanoes on Earth. Those of you who've studied the geology of the Hawaiian Islands, you know that these islands are the only example of this type of volcanic geology on Earth. They're probably one of the only volcanic islands where living next to our volcanoes here is really quite comfortable. They're more of a tourist destination than they are a danger for us. Our lava is too viscous, it flows too easily, it doesn't back up. You don't get these violent pyroclastic explosions here. What you do get is just a constant rolling of lava that almost never stops. We've been since the 1980s and down here at Pu'u'o's been on a roll. She don't quit. Just keeps going. Well, the islands are divided into lava zones. Okay, so as you look at a map of the Big Island, you can type in Google, give me a lava zone, Big Island, and you'll come up with 1 through 10 on a map, color-coded, and it will indicate what areas are most likely to be hit by a lava flow in recent time, or what areas haven't been hit by one for ages. It's a graduated scale. Most of us here on the island live in 3 to 5 zone. 3 to 5 are comfortable lava zones, not likely. My place here, it's probably been back to about the last ice age before there was anything here, and on my property we didn't have lava, it was ash. We got ash the last time there was something that happened here, but it was a long time ago. And so if you're in 3 or you're 4 and 5, you're relatively safe. These are not places where you're going to really worry too much. There's a lot of cheap land for sale in Lava Zone 1, and I personally wouldn't recommend it. That's my person. Not that it's dangerous, it isn't. The flows are always slow enough. You can get the dog, throw it in the microbus, head on down the mountain and go to Hilo or wherever. It's safe if a lava flow starts to come at you. We do not have people killed here in masses by this. Volcanologists that get too close to their work, tourists that get too close to the lava flows, yeah, people can die from it, but it's not particularly dangerous. It's just harder than heck on the nerves. If you live in Lava Zone 1 and Pele starts pushing lava in towards your town like Pahoa, she can be the 800-pound gorilla in the room for 50 years. A lava flow doesn't have to, come and go like a tornado. I guess that's the easiest way to say it. It's not like a tornado, where the tornado shows up overnight, destroys the town. The next morning you pick up the wreckage, and decide what you're going to do about it, and then maybe you don't see a tornado again for 50 years in that town, or 100 years. That's the nature of most natural disasters, but not lava flow. Lava flow can advance, stop, advance, stop, advance, stop, advance, stop, and basically burn your nerves out. It's hard to deal with if it's up the hill from your house. There have been people that have lived next to lava flows here for years and made good money off it too. One of the only bed and breakfasts on a lava flow on the planet was down here by Kalapana till the lava finally turned to that guy, and he had to get out. But Yeah, so the lava is not inherently dangerous, it's just hard on the nerves. What is really much, much more important, and it is that the volcanoes constantly produce millions of tons of sulfur dioxide gas. And that gas is hard to breathe. I mean, it's like a blocked up catalytic converter on a car, or like an LA traffic jam, or worse. It's pretty foul stuff. They won't let you walk into it or drive into it when it's flowing certain directions because rangers and such know better. It'll knock you right out. You'll drop dead there. That's probably the gas from these volcanoes is far more dangerous than the lava is. Here we call it VOG, V-O-G, and VOG means that the discharge of gas from the volcanoes creates something similar to smog or fog. It will embed itself with the moisture particles that are in the air and end up making this haze that, it'll stink like sulfur. It burns the lungs. If you have asthma and other respiratory conditions, it can be really, really hard on you. Now, that's another good reason for loving the windward sides of the islands, because on the eastern sides, when we get the trade wind flows, the wind is always moving towards the volcanoes and pushing the stuff to the western sides. And so if you're in Honolulu, for instance, you're going to breathe more volcanic gas coming from the volcanoes on the Big Island than we will ever breathe here in Hilo on the island. I've actually seen people come up to the national park when the discharge was huge out of Halemaumau over here, that they'd been in Kona for the week on vacation, and they were choking to death, and their eyes were burning, and they came to the rim of the volcano on the eastern side, and the air was crystal clear. It was wonderful and beautiful. Standing on the eastern side of the rim, watching the stuff rise up, air was great. Anywhere west of it, it's pretty bad. It can get so bad in Kau, K-A-U, is a district to the west of the volcanoes, that it has in the past killed crops, destroyed proteas, and so on. It can really, really get thick over there in Kau. Kona, which is famous on the Big Island, is a tourist destination. But it has a few nice places to swim, and there's some good fishing off that side of the island too. Good place for boating. I've got a lot of nice things I could say about Kona. But as far as the air quality is concerned, Kona is pitiful. Oh my God. I can't stay in Kona for long. If I stay there for long, I start to get a respiratory ailment because Kona is usually filled with the VOG most of the time. It's also pretty darn hot over there. Nice thing about the eastern sides of the islands is we get the cooling trade winds. People who come from the Kona side and come visit me are always out standing on my lanai, my porch, facing the ocean here, absorbing that nice clean air that comes in on this side of the island. If you like clean air, you really don't want to end up on the western sides of any of these islands. The south and west sides of the islands could be such a mess with fog. Best place in the Hawaiian Islands to not have VOG is the eastern side of the Big Island, anywhere from Lower Puna through Hilo up the Hamakua coast. This is where you have the good air. We have the good air most of the time. It's maybe 2-3% of the time we can actually get VOG over here. It can happen, but it doesn't happen often. Most of the time we got clean air. In fact, the EPA used to use Flagstaff, Arizona, Humphreys Peak as the baseline monitoring for clean air in the United States. Well, they had to switch some years back because they were picking up pollution up there. And now they're down here just below my house at Kumakai'ai, the lighthouse point, picking up clean air baseline. So the standard for clean air in America is 20 miles down the hill from my house, where the air is coming in over here on this side of the Big Island. So this is something else to consider, because I hear so many people shudder about the fact, oh, you live on the rainy side of the Hawaiian Islands. It's like, how can you stand it over there? And I'm going, man, how can you stand living on the dry side? It's hot, the air stinks, and it's crowded too. Traffic conditions over on that side are pathetic, actually. They're awful. We don't have any freeways here. Everything's two-lane blacktop, and The Hilo side has much better flow patterns on the roads, and so we don't get locked in traffic jams over here. Some of the most interesting parts of this island are actually under the ocean. If you come here, you really want to make sure that you go under the water, because the coral reefs here are quite nice. We still have pretty good fish populations despite the pressure on the fish here and so on. And so it's definitely the other half of the Hawaiian Islands is below the water line. The main thing you would concern yourself with here is tsunami. There is no force in nature that is more dangerous and destructive in Hawaii than tsunami. We have numerous horror stories and towns that have been swept away and museums dedicated to and so on. That's one you take for real. And I live 1,600 feet up on the side of Kilauea over here. I'm in a place where if there was a tsunami, where everybody would want to come and have barbecue and beer over at Bill's, because we're well above the line where any ordinary tsunami would ever penetrate, other than the Hollywood type that come from giant meteors or something. But under most circumstances, I am well out of the tsunami zone. The shoreline, on the other hand, is of course one of the most popular things about this island, and so there are so many people that want to be right near the shore, and there are some places near the shore that aren't bad. You get to Hilo and some of the land that rises up out of town. You can see the ocean, you're close to it, but you're in a safe place. On the other hand, anywhere down flat near the shore on these islands is a place where you really want to consider what's happening when you get an earthquake in Chile or Alaska or something. Get ready, because you can get wiped out pretty easily if you're down near the shore here. The other factor of being near the shore is that you have all the salt spray. And so you're pretty much pulling the electronics out of your house about every 7 years or so and gutting that stuff, redoing the light switches and so on. Metal on this island dissolves, and what it dissolves from depends on which way you're pointing. The eastern side of my house, metal is eaten by salt. I'm 20 miles off the ocean here, but that doesn't matter. The salt comes in with the winds, and so it eats metal on the eastern side of my house, and it makes little white spots on my windows and so on that have to get cleaned off. On the south side of my house, though, I'm facing Pu'u'o'o over that way, and so that way we're getting some volcanic dust. And so south side of my house gets black crud from the volcanoes, and it gets more sulfur, and the metal that gets eaten on that side gets sulfur eating it. So I guess on the southeast corner I'm probably getting sulfur and salt, so that's a real good combination. But I'm 20 miles up the mountain, you know, and this is a ways in here. You get right down near the shore, and boy, that stuff is constant. Painted wood lasts much, much longer around here than any kind of a metal surface. And so metal is a problem in Hawaii. Metal that's really well painted, pretty good. When it comes to galvanizing or zinc plating or cadmium plating, it's a joke. Okay? You figure if you're using zinc plating, you're okay. It ain't gonna work. The stuff just eats right off. CAD plating is gone in weeks in this environment. It's the average temperature, the moisture, the salt, the sulfur, and so on, just creates a corrosive condition on metals. Zinc, if it is hot dipped, like farmer fence posts, the steel T-fence posts, here they take a whole fence post and they plunge that thing into a vat of molten zinc. It comes out just dripping with the stuff, not plated, it's hot dipped. Those last. They'll hold up for a while, and say it's worth the money to buy hot dipped galvanized stuff here. Use stainless steel materials here. It's a very good choice. As far as paint is concerned, the absolute best one you can put on metal around here is an epoxy paint. NASA used that on the space shuttles and so forth. That's pretty tough stuff. DuPont Emeron, good choice. That's what NASA used. Very, very good paint for the local environment. Otherwise, any old plain exterior latex works on metal too, but you got to keep it up. You have to keep it fresh. And as long as everything's well coated with paint, you're in good stead around here. But otherwise, things have a tendency to dissolve very rapidly. It's a trip. And so you may not be expecting that one. I'll clue you in. Keep your metal painted. in most tropical environments, Africa, the Amazon, and so forth, places like this, these tropical environments oftentimes have some really, really nasty creepy crawlers, ticks of all sorts, poisonous reptiles, chiggers that burrow under your skin. So these environments are well known to have some pretty hostile stuff. Hawaii, it's just a whole other situation, and again, it has to do with isolation. Almost nothing could make the trip to get here. It's 2,500 miles away from anywhere. It's the most remote island on the face of the planet in all directions. Okay, and so getting anything to this island originally before boats came was not easy at all. And so the only mammals that we had here before the arrival of the first Polynesians were the seals. The Hawaiian monk seals got here because, of course, they can swim. Numerous kinds of dolphins and whales and so on, and porpoises had made their way here. So we got plenty of spinner dolphins, and this is whale watching season. The whales come by, they enjoy Hawaii. And so those were mammals. Other than that, there is a Hawaiian bat that somehow made its way over here. It's a long trip for the poor thing, but it did make it prior to the Polynesians coming in. That was just about it as far as mammals were concerned. There were a considerable amount of birds that had made it here, which makes sense. They could fly. It was a long flight, but the Hawaiian flightless goose, the nene. The nene actually originally was a Canadian goose. It had been here for so long, it lost the webs in its toes, it lost its ability to fly, and the thing walks around on barren lava flows eating one type of blueberry called the ohelo berry that might have also gotten here with the goose because its genetics indicate it did somehow get here from the Pacific Northwest. It's the nene's favorite food. Well, the nene is the last of all the flightless birds. We had dozens of different types of flightless birds here. They were pretty much exterminated by the earliest settlers because they were just too easy to kill. The type of isolation that we experienced here not only caused birds to lose the ability to fly because they didn't need it anymore, they were safe, basically, but plants that made their way here before settlement, the plants were of the weediest types on Earth because only the worst weeds could actually make the trip this far and survive. After they were here for thousands of years, they adapted, lost their poisons, lost their spines, lost their weedy nature, and basically joined the same aloha spirit with the birds that lost the ability to fly. So they created a very, very, very unique environment here that did not have poisons, did not have spines, was not aggressive. It was a very peaceful, pastoral place for most creatures. And so we had a complete turnaround as far as what you would ordinarily expect in a tropical environment. We had literally nothing that bit other than sharks offshore, And, well, as time went on, first Polynesians came. Well, they brought with them, of course, chickens. They brought pigs. They also inadvertently brought rats. Then that was followed by the English. Captain Cook got here, and Cook, he brought sheep. They brought goats. They brought the cows. Okay, so they brought the first really big ungulates that got to the island, which caused all kinds of problems. Okay, they created tremendous problems once they got here. Still do, but. These types of animals, mice got here with the English, other rats, the Norway rats got here with the English, and so on. And then, of course, everybody who comes here decides, well, they got to have their favorite plant, their favorite flower, their favorite vegetable, their whatever, and the favorite birds. And so they just started bringing and bringing and bringing and bringing and bringing it until we ended up later on with the agricultural departments and inspections and so on. Now there's a kind of a control going on, but frankly, Hawaii spends more time worrying about what leaves here that might affect everybody else than they really spend worrying about what gets here from somewhere else. Stuff gets here constantly now. It's airplanes every day, hundreds of them, boats, cargo containers, and each and every one of them contains something. A lot of it was never intended. They were just accidentals. The coqui frog supposedly was an accidental that got here from Puerto Rico and loaded Dracaena cuttings. Other things, they get here because people bring them. And sometimes they come as accidentals when somebody's bringing something they shouldn't have been bringing, but then it had a hitchhiker too, And so if you come here to visit, if you come here to live, if you come here, period, really, please, abide by the quarantine laws. Don't attempt to violate them, because the problems created from people who think they're smarter than the ag inspectors around here are awful. We would not have rat lungworm on the island, which is a fairly nasty parasite, something that you don't really want. We wouldn't have the stinging nettle caterpillars. In fact, we wouldn't have the dang mosquitoes even. In my life, there was a time I remember where there were hardly any mosquitoes here in this area. They've gotten to be fairly abundant these days. Yeah, since we do have mosquitoes that have gotten here, then if people show up on the island that are infected with a disease that is vectored by a mosquito, it will start small populations. We had a dengue fever thing happen here on the Big Island a year or two back, because somebody came here with the disease, the mosquitoes bit them, and they started spreading it. We don't actually have the diseases here, okay, and we usually have managed to stop them from spreading, okay, by spraying mosquitoes and quarantining the people that have diseases and so on. So we currently do not have any of the tropical diseases that people are used to in other areas here, but they can show up, and briefly they can raise heck around here. So expect to have to control mosquitoes around your residence no matter what part of this island you're on. In fact, I hear from people on the western side, for some reason or another, they got more mosquitoes over in Kona than we have over here in Mountain View. I'm not sure why that is, because it's moister over here, but anyway, the growing conditions here are year-round. Something grows all year in Hawaii, at least at this elevation it does. But the idea that there are no seasons here is a misconception caused by people who have to survive through ice and snow and horrendous weather conditions in the north. The changes here are subtle. You can see them in the angle of the shadows. You can see it in the placement of the rainbows when they form. There's a lot of small ways that you can see the shift of the seasons here, because there is an hour and 20 minutes variation from June 21st to December 21st here in Puna. So if you have seasonally affected disorder, this is probably a great place for you, because that hour and 20 minutes is not very much, and it doesn't usually cause people to go into the blues. But it is detectable, and I can see it here in my plants, in the way things grow, in flowering cycles, in the leafing cycles of plants, and so on. The seasons are actually quite clear if you live here and you're on top of nature. And so we do have seasons in Hawaii. It's not true that it's endless summer. Temperatures are about 10 degrees cooler in the winter on the average than they are in the summertime. You get an hour and 20 minutes variation of the day length, about 10 degrees, and I see it more in the plants than anywhere else. Of course, I'm a plant guy, and I walk by a plant and whisper to it, and I can tell immediately, oh, look at that, the Annonacea is going into defoliations because of the day length, Oh, look, the flowers are pushing out on the citrus because of the day length, People here like to say that somebody comes in from Chicago and says, well, you guys haven't got any seasons here. They go, oh, yeah, we do. Yeah, we got mango season, we got lychee season, we got lilikoi season, we got guava season. And it's true. Everything is seasonal. Folks contact me trying to get seeds for various plants and things, and I'll tell them, well, that's, that comes in May, or that's a fall thing, and they're usually, it's the tropics. Doesn't it happen year-round? And no, it doesn't. Everything has its limits. We grow lots and lots of pineapples here, for instance, but my pineapple season is August, October. The plants are out there all year long, Right now we're in pineapple bloom season, okay, as we're approaching spring. But I won't have fruit to pick until probably about August. And then we'll be out of it again for the rest of the year. And so everything has its seasons here. Definitely, it's seasonal climate. It's a little more subtle. That's about it. It doesn't slap you in the face, and you don't need a windshield scraper unless you want to go up and visit the top of Mauna Kea. You're going to need an ice scraper if you're going up to see the observatories. The fact that we have such huge high mountains here is incredible if you like stargazing. If you're a stargazer, this is the place. It doesn't get much better. Hang loose. Come visit. Consider whether you want to stay or not. I don't want to see too many of you stay. I want to continue to promote the idea that it rains like crazy in Hilo, the sun never comes out, you don't want to go there because it's already too crowded, you know. It depends, but it's already getting kind of crowded. I'm not surprised because it's just one beautiful place to live.